So welcome to the Meathook elbow lever video. So this is going to go through the versions from April through to August because I usually rotate the 4 versions. This is the basic compression tuck into the straight line pull inverted. So you've got the compression tuck into the open tuck into the straight line, looking at the ceiling, looking at the floor. So you want to get these positions down and really feel comfortable. Then when you're going into the reverse Meathook position, you're flexing at the knee and then extending the hip. And then here I've added the internal rotation and then opening the front of the hip flexors, looking down and then extending back. So these are all the base positions that you want to really have down, have good control in and feel comfortable doing. And then having a nice light exit. You can pike down or you can tuck down as well. Piking down's a touch harder. And then have a nice soft landing. So that should be super comfortable before you progress into this, where you straddle each arm for the front Meathook, where you're loading down similar to a front lever position because you're working the lats a little bit more. Now when you go to the other side, you're trying to open up the front of the hip and you're still straddling the strap with the ring and then opening the front of the hip. Here you can see it's a little bit more challenging, and I've got that forearm resting on the sacrum. Then I'm going to go into the other side, repeat and balance, try and get the mirroring effect so that both sides are equal and you're not dominant on one side. So that's where you straddle. Now the next version you're going to go into is using both legs. So coming up into that nice position. Now this is where it gets a lot heavier, so you really have to have a base level of front levers down to be able to shift over, and all the weight's going into one arm. Still holding the other ring to allow for the transition, but you should have a nice open tuck front lever to be able to make the transitions, because you can see as you come down to keep the arms straight and then to go over. And there is a lot more pressure going into the ribs with this version, so you really want to have that down and progress through slowly, feel super comfortable. And then here when you're doing the reverse version, this is a lot heavier, so you want to have a base tuck level of a back lever down, an open tuck preferably going eccentrically down, just to have that control and being able to do that position where you wrap around. Now the one arm entries, really important. This isn't too hard going into, but when you're pulling up from here, where it gets heavier through the core and then coming out. So again, you want to condition the ribs and the core so it feels nice and smooth. Transition into, so it should feel nice and smooth entering and then exiting as well. So you should feel both sides are balanced as you pull out. So the reverse Meathook entry for the single arm, you're starting in the double grip and then rolling up into it. So you roll up, extend that leg back, open the front of the hip, and then reach the arm up overhead. And then you're trying to decompress that supportive leg. So this is a lot heavier, and you really need to get that conditioning to be able to tolerate the force. But you're trying to get the back of the body pressing against the forearm there and trying to get that wrist as close to the center of mass as possible. So you can see the most basic version of the elbow lever is actually on the ball. So you're conditioning the anterior core and also the posterior core when you lift up. So first you just want to lie on the ball, get used to that pressure. Then you're trying to get that nice posterior chain activation with the glutes, and then extending out the arm or flexing at the shoulder, lengthening through the arm, and then the other arm, getting nice and stable there. Then you want to be able to do both arms. This is quite challenging here, and you can see how I shuffle the arms forward and back, and that's going to counterbalance. And then also you can straddle or bring the feet together, and that will change the center of mass position as it's over that base of support being the center of the ball. So these are really good exercises to get the base level of balance and conditioning before you go into that elbow lever. You can see here I'm bringing that elbow into the oblique line on the outside of the rectus abdominis. So you're positioning it in there. You've got to hold that core tight so that way there's something firm for the elbow to, and the inside of the upper arm to press against. So the whole inside of the upper arm and that elbow's driving in there, and then you're just strengthening it. So it's the right arm and then going into the left. So both sides should be equal, and you really want to make sure that both feel comfortable and strong. And then you can start to lengthen out like I am here, and then taking one limb off at a time, and then taking 2 limbs off at a time as well. Really trying to stretch through the fingertips and the toe tips before you go into a balance. It's not that hard, but it is a bit of a process to condition. Next is the double arm elbow lever. So here I'm placing the fingers facing back towards the body and then leaning over. So it's really important to get strong in this position. It's quite hard to protract the shoulder blades around the body and then lean over to get that lift. So you can see that the forearms are forward, they're not vertical, to be able to bring the legs together. So you really got to press forward, and it's good to train that planche, pseudo kind of planche position there with a shoulder protraction as well, I find, for people, to condition the wrists as well as the shoulder blades in that position. Here we've got the next version with the lateral entry. So I'm going from a squat laterally down into the tucked elbow lever, and you can see the top arm is forward and then pressing back out, skipping to the other side, and repeating it on the other side, trying to mirror it, make the left and right sides equal. So here, bring both knees together, tucking, pointing the toes, then pressing out. So they're quite nice. All of these are quite static, and you want to be able to develop them into more dynamic versions, but feel nice and strong and stable. I've actually got my hands quite wide here, because you want to be able to get that forehead to go through the other forearm. And then as the split position there, you can see how wide it goes, and really opening up the front of the hip on that leg that's extending back and curling to get the touch here, and there's a seesaw action to kick back. So you want to have that nice smooth transition on those, and then I'm moving the wrists there, extending, and then doing some wrist rocks. So working 4 rounds of these, 5 rounds, film them, get them back to me for some feedback, and I'll see you soon. Get into it.